Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to play a little music, a couple of minutes of music, and invite your friends. Bring some people in. Bring some people into this stream. We're streaming on YouTube at Duke1517, and we're on Facebook at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead. Join us, tell your friends. We're going to be talking about Portland, Oregon, and Antifa tonight in the leadership. Get in, get on, sit tight. We'll have delight. Tonight's going to be a good show. Information you have not seen, information you have not heard. Yet, it's the truth in Portland, Oregon. There's people behind the scenes. We know who they are. We know where they came from. We need to cover them. So pay attention.
Good evening, one and all, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Now, this evening, I will be talking about Portland's Antifa leadership. The reason why it is important for folks to become familiar with those in leadership is because they keep showing up again and again and again. I'm going to be focusing tonight on Lilith Sinclair. That's not her real name, of course. Her real name is Kiara Horsley. Kiara Janae Horsley. I've talked about her before. We should get to know more about her activities, and what she's currently doing right now in Portland. Now, you may recall that I talked about a man that just recently got arrested. And his name is Tawasi, no last name, although I have seen him go by Tawasi Sose. And this man just recently got arrested almost a month after I featured him on a show called Stolen Land. I wanted to make sure that my audience understood the connection between the people in Native American leadership and the people in Antifa anarchist leadership, because they have merged. I've shown you that they had merged with the caravans at the border. Here in this tweet, Andy No talked about the arrest of this man, which was incorrectly identified by the Department of Justice as being a Canadian by the name of Ronald Bernard Hickey. That is not Tawasi. There is probably a Canadian man by the name of Ronald Bernard Hickey, but it is not Tawasi Sose. Tawasi has lived in many states. Most recently, he's been in Oregon. I featured him last year with the riots with Evan Duke. And this year, I talked about how he was getting involved in the hashtag Stolen Land campaign to reclaim America from the settlers, to reclaim America from the settlers and the colonialists. Among these folks with this media mantra is Lilith Sinclair. And she too is in Portland, Oregon. She too has been there, along with the people that have recently been arrested. I am sure that she is being closely watched because if you recall from my reporting back on the caravan days, she was placed on a watch list, right, of an international investigation into human smuggling and trafficking across numerous borders from Central America and beyond through Mexico into the United States. I'm going to refresh your memory about all of the things that she was involved with, including the smuggling or trafficking of a minor child that was kidnapped from the Agape shelter in Tijuana, Mexico. I'm going to remind you what she has supported, what she endorses, and who she has been currently supporting, and why it is wrong and why it is tied to the continued abuse of children, smuggling and trafficking of people, and trafficking of children. And there is something very ugly that is hidden within these groups that continue to support the abuse, the trafficking, including sex trafficking of minors. All of this is going to be on tonight's show here on Mexican Crossing Lines. But first, I want to thank all of the people that are watching, for sharing, for supporting our station, and for messaging us. How can folks leave us a message, Duke?
Well, they can do it in many different ways, and you can do a call-in, leave a message on our message line at 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917. You can email Cindy at kpppfm.com or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. We actually got a card in the mail yesterday. Thank you very much. You know who you are, with a donation. Check written out to our nonprofit, and thank you very much. If you would like to make a donation, you can go to our website at kpppfm.com/donate. Make a tax-deductible donation so you can help fund this station, so we can do programming like this. And we do all the other wonderful stuff we do in this community and this region of the world, as well as our Facebook Lives and our YouTube Lives. So thank you very much. Also, find us on YouTube at Duke1517 or Facebook at 88.1 Fargo Moorhead. We're streaming live on both platforms right now, and welcome to the show.
I think it's really important to mention that when we last saw Lilith Sinclair, she was operating under the command of Evan Duke III, one of the founders of the Caravan Support Network. Evan Duke III came with the veterans to Standing Rock. He was involved in the debacle, in the longer than 1 year protest that happened in North Dakota against the Dakota Access Pipeline. He was responsible for helping to start the camps at the border with the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe, opposing the completion of a border wall at that location that they have been protesting probably ever since. They continue to protest. As a matter of fact, you know the butterfly center that sits there at that location where they created their encampment to fight the finishing of the border wall? Yep. The butterfly center. And do you remember the crooked lawyers from Al Otro Lado? The ones that were doing the fake marriages at the border and working with the activists that kidnapped an unaccompanied minor? Yeah, well, very recently, last month, right around the time, in fact, I think it was on the first day that I did an updated report on Paloma Zuniga, there was a number of tweets that came out from the Butterfly Center and from Al Otro Lado, attacking yours truly for the work that we had done to help inform law enforcement in this country and beyond about the activities of these activists, which included Portland Antifa leadership like Lilith Sinclair.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I was surprised to see that all of a sudden they were tweeting about me and the reporting that we had done and saying that we were responsible. Our reporting was responsible for activists being snatched up. I can only assume that means arrested, investigated, detained at the border when you were doing your nefarious activities. And if that is the case, then I guess I got to pat myself on the back, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Good job, Duke.
Yeah, snatched up. It's like these people are out there doing their criming, doing their all the illegalities that they're doing, and they put it under a banner of fighting for social justice. These people need to be brought to justice.
And I want to share this video that was also recently posted by Andy No about Lilith Sinclair. You'll see that he tweeted that Portland Antifa activist and sex worker, she calls herself a full-service sex worker, Andy. I don't know if you know that. Says that she is organizing for the abolition of the United States of America at an event outside the federal courthouse. She is applauded by the audience and she is joined by religious clergy. Now, folks, for all of my fans and followers that have been watching Duke and I reporting all the way back to 2016 when we were talking about Standing Rock, do you remember when the clergy came to Standing Rock? Do you remember the importance of the role of the moral superiority that was represented by the use of clergy at the protests? Now, flash forward at the border with the crooked lawyers of Al Otro Lado like Nicole Ramos, surrounded by the clergy in Tijuana, protesting the Mexican government and the American government for their policies and their practices on border security and immigration. Well, I'm reminding you of that because I wouldn't be surprised if the same clergy, the same tactics are being used here. Let's hear what she had to say. I want to have you flash forward to the article and skip that little video because that's included in the YouTube that we're going to see in a minute.
I see.
So there's a whole YouTube video that, well, go ahead and play this. This is only 25 seconds long. I want you to hear what she says in this one quick YouTube video in which she's actually calling for the abolition of the U.S. Take a listen.
Hi everyone. As many of you know, my name is Lilith Sinclair. I'm an Afro-Indigenous, non-binary local organizer here in Portland, organizing for the abolition of not just the militarized police state, but also the United States as we know it. I want to make sure that while we are standing here on stolen land, we make sure to do a land acknowledgement.
Okay.
Wow.
You got all of the we got all of the words that you're supposed to use. Stolen land, right? Mm-hmm. We got that clergy standing behind her in the kente cloth. Can you put that up there again? Didn't Nancy Pelosi and all of the Congress members do the same thing? They put that kente cloth on.
Yep.
That is so appropriative and yeah, it's a pandering of an idea that, you know, again, it is performative. And to me, that is quite insulting. Anyway, in this article in twitchy.com, they talk about how this Afro-Indigenous non-binary local organizer in Portland is calling for the abolition of the United States as we know it. And they shared the tweet in which she talks a little bit about how she wants to abolish the police and America. We're going to get rid of America also and everything that it stands for, because America is wrong to these. It's not enough. Remember, I told you that. Mm-hmm. It's not enough to say, and they're not saying that the Native American rights and sovereignty need to be defended, and that they need to have as much access to resources and land as the people that are settlers here, right? No, they're saying we need to take the land back. They're asking for basically the abolition of the United States. So I'll share the link to this, or I'll have Nemo share the link to this article in which it basically shows people's reaction to this woman, and a lot of people are angry, I guess. Let me read some of the comments. Stolen land would mean she believes that a group owned it in the past. I guarantee she does not believe in private property rights, by Project Mayhem 78 on Twitter. At One Year Writer at Twitter says, lazy millennials like Lilith ultimately want to come take Gen X resources, money, property, etc. People like her fundamentally are deranged and know that there is little hope for happiness in their life unless they are able to commandeer resources from productive people. Also, at One Year Writer said, it's really jealousy and greed masquerading as a social movement. They want nice things, as everyone does, but don't want to put in the effort to get it honestly. So there's a lot of reactions, not the least of which are the fact that she comes off as an entitled, very young, very inexperienced millennial. And of course, that she doesn't really believe in America or the rights of people that are Americans or of property owners, etc. Another tweet by at JR in the USA, at JR in Pueblo, says that Portland Black Lives Matter's Lilith Sinclair is not just about abolition of the police state, but abolition of the United States. This proves our whole government could care less if we are free. She should be tried for sedition and put away forever. And yet, here she is running her suck. And the reason why she is able to do this is because, first of all, I believe people don't really know exactly who she is to the extent that she is an activist or a full-service sex worker, and what is behind the ideology and the people that she has worked with. But let's take a look. I'm going to refresh your memory for those who don't know. Lilith Sinclair has her Twitter handle at Lilith THX Sinclair. And this was a tweet that she made that was retweeted by Andy No, who said that Lilith Sinclair, Portland activist, Antifa activist and sex worker, recently praised for giving a speech in downtown where she called for the abolition of both the police in the United States, appears to be urging an arson terror attack on the federal courthouse. This is her tweet. If I get picked up by the federal police and y'all don't burn down the courthouse, I am replying to every first prison yard letter that I receive with nothing but a piece of paper that says K in the middle. Hashtag just saying. What did that sound like to you? Is that a request that you destroy everything, burn it all
to
down?
the ground, yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Definitely.
And remember, when I talked about these activists being in Tijuana, and I talked about the fact that they were inciting violence, inciting clashes with police because their media allies had shown up to make up their side of the story. And I told you that they were there to commit crimes. I was talking about the fact that it goes beyond the peaceful protester rhetoric that people want you to believe. When you have somebody saying, hey, when I get arrested, I want you to burn the city to the ground. Otherwise, I won't respect you. Mm-hmm. Let's listen to her full speech, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Hi everyone. As many of you know, my name is Lilith Sinclair. I am an Afro-Indigenous, non-binary local organizer here in Portland, organizing for the abolition of not just the militarized police state, but also the United States as we know it. I want to make sure that while we are standing here on stolen land, we make sure to do a land acknowledgement. So, I'm here today to remind the people on this land who the original keepers of the land were and still are. What is now Portland, Oregon, has a rich history since time immemorial. Many tribes lived here, including the Multnomah, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, and Malala. Also, please remember to include the Willamette Tumwater and the Watlala for people who historically lived here. Also, the Tualatin Kalapuya are one people, a band of the Kalapuya people who lived in the Portland area. Many more tribes traded here, including the Wasco, Warm Springs, Yakima Silex. This area was a trading spot. Tribes from all along the Columbia River, all the way from the start of the river in Canada to the mouth of the river along the Pacific Ocean and along all the Columbia River tributaries and up the coast would come here and trade cloth, beads, coins, shells, medicine, food, music, dance, and language. Families and tribes would join together in a marriage, would sit and share meals together, tell stories, and pray together. This has been going on since before anyone can remember. When the colonizers who created the state of Oregon and the city of Portland and surrounding cities came, they saw us not as people, but as wild animals. They enacted a genocide against the people here, killing us using physical weapons such as guns or fists, mental weapons such as boarding schools and Christianity, and biological weapons such as smallpox and other diseases. The goal was to eradicate us as we were on the land and the colonizers wanted the land for themselves. They have continued to do things like kidnapping children and not allowing people to practice their culture without severe punishments, including death, making our religions and customs illegal, providing us with false health care, forcing us onto reservations with poor access to our ancestral food, or any food at all for that matter, and killing so many of us that often what is left is a mere memory. These are facts that we as Indigenous people have to live with every minute of every day of our entire lives. I'm here today not just to honor our ancestors and those who have been lost, but to remind all people, and especially white people, of the violent history of the land you are on. You are here today standing on the dead backs of men, women, children, two-spirit, and non-binary people. There is Indigenous blood oozing out of every step you take, bloodshed not by us, but by racist colonizers who viewed us as game to hunt. I am also here to tell you that this history...
Oh, dear God, there was half of the video left?
Yeah. The longest,
I'm sorry, I
longest
can't.
6 minutes you would ever spend.
I can't do it. I was going to let you listen to it. You know what I'll do? I'll share the link to it. It's a lot of regurgitated rhetoric that... I mean, it's practically scripted from their Antioch College training. This group of people that went on to form the Caravan Support Network, later known as the Border Support Network, working with Antifa leader and not too long ago arrested activist Evan K. Duke III.
Mm-hmm.
They had this philosophy, this campaign. They drew out on a chalkboard about what the Border Support Network would become, and it was going to have indigenous leadership, and they were going to teach everybody, especially anybody that's indigenous, right? Anybody that's First Nation, anybody that has some quantum of native blood or African blood or indigenous people's blood, meaning non-white people, right? Any non-white people were going to be taught about their historical trauma, right? You got to teach everybody about the history of their trauma. And then you also have this component of water protectors. Those are the Antifa activists that were non-native but were allies, and also they are anarchists. They are Antifa, and they were going to be doing mutual aid. We saw this whole group connected also on the same chalkboard to the lawyers of groups like Al Otro Lado and NGOs and nonprofits that are supporting this work, along with politicians and political campaigns on both sides of the border. And what they have been doing ever since is marrying those ideas. Lilith Sinclair, whose real name again is Kiara Janae Horsley, she does not claim, when she says our.
I was wondering about that.
Oh, let me explain to you. She became an Indian. She's not just African descent. She's also Native American. Who she's really representing when she says she is a full service sex worker, Antifa activist, anarchist, that she is non-binary, that those are the things that really matter to her. And I can bet you, I can guarantee you that most Native American indigenous people from this continent and others, Black people, Black Lives Matter people, do not and would not have chosen this person to be their representative, to be their spokesperson and speak on their behalf, especially if they knew what she represented and who she is. They wouldn't want that for their representative. And yet she does speak on behalf of indigenous people and queer people and Black people and Black Lives Matter and indigenous rights groups, and also, I guess, on behalf of people immigrating to this country. In this Democracy Now! Interview, in which she spoke along with that same sign language guy, who I'll tell you more about in just a minute. Her and the sign language guy's name is Andrew Tolman. And she and Andrew Tolman and others started a group called Activism Actually, a group which helped to found the page Border Support Network that she and Evan Duke were administrators of. So here she is talking to Amy Goodman about Portland. And remember, she's one asking for violence. There are people there inciting violence. Listen to her tone on Democracy Now! See if you can tell the difference.
Along with an ASL interpreter. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Lilith, if you can start off by describing these last 50 days, why you're out in the streets protesting, and what has been the response by not only the state, but these federal officers that have not been unclear who they are.
Thank you so much, Amy. I want to say first for having us here and for helping us to provide accessibility to this interview, which is something that we've been really focusing on in Portland for the last 50 days, starting on day one and starting 2 years ago. It's hard to encompass the depth of what we've experienced in the streets here in Portland. This movement originally started with a single Black mom coming out to the streets and leading the call for an occupation here in Portland on the federal court steps to demand change. And what that has swelled into is a movement, thousands and thousands strong, that has really proven to unite so many of our people here. What we've seen is a continuous escalation in violence against our protesters. But something that is important for us to understand is that here in Portland, we've been facing severe police brutality, even from our local police force, for years and decades. The movement that we have right now, what is happening in response to, as you mentioned, an international really uprising against police brutality, racism, and I would say even more than that, against oppressive structures, because this isn't, just a movement about police brutality. And so what we've been experiencing is a solid escalation. It started out with, as per usual, our local Portland Police Bureau engaging in a lot of not only intimidation tactics, but violent brutality against our protesters. We've had officers that have been deploying flashbangs after flashbangs after flashbangs, while simultaneously deploying CS gas and other munitions, tear gas, and all of these different types of pepper spray bullets and new things that we actually haven't even seen once the federal government has come in. But this has been a long-term engagement with a militarized police force, and it's important for us to recognize that the federal occupation has escalated it, especially because of the rhetoric that we're seeing from those who hold office. But what we're noticing is that the violence, as per usual, is continuing to rise. We're seeing these disappearances. I think it's important to note that these unmarked cars that are going around on the street are unmarked rental vehicles. They are full of men in uniforms, no badges, no IDs. They refuse to even answer the question of, are you or are you not law enforcement? And it's left the people of Portland not only worried about their safety, but even more so justified in the fight that we're engaged in. A recognition that, especially during an international global health pandemic, as you talked about these numbers rising and the continued push of normalcy in the midst of all of this, especially from not just Republicans, but also Democrats too, who are continuing to hold this pressure to reopen, like here in Oregon, where we created a new reopening and then saw people now, weeks later, experiencing higher rates in cases, being once again laid off from their jobs, being once again failed by the unemployment system. And what's happening in Portland is what's happening all across the country. The people have a moment to understand and truly see the failures of this capitalist white supremacist system, because they have nothing but time on their hands. And so what we understand is that the movement continuing to go forward is only swelling. It's why we see moms coming out to line up a wall. That was followed up last night with the dad block. A lot of amazing folks that came downtown last night after watching people get brutalized on a nightly basis. We are spending our nights in terror. We can't sleep on one side of the city or the other due to the flashbangs, due to the tear gas across the entire city. It's affecting our houseless communities. It's affecting our neighborhoods. And it's gone unaddressed by both our state officials and also our local officials here in Portland, with nothing but well-meaning words, which is only further causing a very rightful sense of frustration, anger, and a need for justice from the people here. It's why we see these things continuing to grow.
It's why we see these things continuing to grow.
Wow.
That's the reason why. She never mentions the fact that her and most of her friends go from place to place as professional activists and don't even hold jobs for years. None of them. They're just, and they get paid through GoFraudMe's. The GoFraudMe's, as I've told you, are a perfect money laundering scheme that allows anonymous donors to pay for mercenaries to travel around and create protests and burn down buildings and smuggle people across the border. This isn't my imagination. This is what the activists working with them said, like Louis Monsivice when he explained how they crossed people illegally into the United States and where the best spots were.
Yep.
This isn't my imagination. This is what I uncovered in the reporting of what these people were doing. And their group that started the Border Support Network, Activism Actually, which, by the way, Andrew Tolman, the guy that was doing ALS sign language there, started with her. In this post, in which he's also doing a translation of signing, you can see he tags some of his fellow activists that he started the Border Support Network with and Activism Actually: Cam McCoy, Lilith Sinclair, and Evan Duke. That's Evan Duke, the one that got arrested. I talked to you about that when that happened. It was last year, wasn't it? It was yet last year?
Yep.
Shortly after we reported on the Portland, Oregon riots. He got arrested.
Wow.
And then, we reported last month that Tawasi was out in Portland doing his thing, and then he got arrested. In this video I'm about to show you, it's only 1 minute long. I can't play it with the sound, but I would like to share with you while this is playing what this song is about. Or I guess what I saw in the video. There's a song called Marquis Roll Up, and he is doing a sign language interpretation of it. I can't even find the lyrics for this song online. And it's kind of like a disco version. I'd never actually bothered to go and look at the words of this song. It's a very, very gay community, queer centric, especially, sex positive, if you want to call it that, but definitely supportive of sex workers like Lilith Sinclair. Kind of a video. And in it, there is a lot of rolling of joints. As you can see, he's smoking one there, and woo, it's awesome, right? And they're doing that in the video. Like there's like mounds of marijuana, and they're rolling joints or blunts, and there are a lot of people that are trans that are like dancing and twerking, and there's a lot of jerking and twerking and that kind of thing going on. Okay, that's a video that he did a translation for. Among the translations that he does, I thought it was one of his most entertaining ASL American Sign Language translations. But this is the person behind the name Lilith Sinclair, Kiara Janae Horsley. That's who she actually is. And let me tell you who else recently joined this merry band of activists, or con artivists as I like to call them, that I've been following since Standing Rock. None other than Johnny Dangers. Remember, these are their media allies. And when these folks show up, when certain folks show up, I know that stuff is going down.
Yep.
Recently, not long ago, Johnny Dangers said, "Oh boy, I need to get over to Portland. Who thinks I should go to Portland? Who wants to fund me going to Portland?" And then he put up his GoFraud.me, and now he's there. And what is one of the things that is prominently featured on his page? Why, it's the speech by the organizer, the local organizer, Lilith Sinclair, who he talks about in this post as if they don't know each other, as if they don't work together, as if they don't feature each other in the news and they're on their platforms all the time, like broken records. And of course, Johnny Dangers was recently also at the 4th of July celebration in South Dakota, attended by President Trump. Remember the Stolen Land show in which I showed you that a bunch of the Standing Rock people went and blocked the road? They were there to create a blockade, and none other than Johnny Dangers on his platform said, "Hey folks, who wants to fund taking me to South Dakota? I want to go cover this blockade." And boy, people funded him through his GoFundMe, and there he was. And he talks about this huge blockade that was stopping the event, or stopping people from going to the event at Mount Rushmore. And of course, there was arrests because there was violent clashes with the police. Mm-hmm. It says they were acts of courage and civil disobedience. No, they assaulted police officers. They took and damaged police property, and they got arrested. A lot of them chose to get arrested after they were notified for several minutes to a half an hour to an hour, a full hour, that arrests would be proceeding soon. And if you can go back to that post he made, they had a GoFundMe. Excuse me, they call it the BH Legal Fund, the Black Hills Legal Fund. Donate to the bail fund of those arrested. Let me remind you what they do with those bail funds. They bail people out, and then when those people make plea deals and or go to court, that money goes back, right?
Right.
And what happens to all the money they raise for the bail that they recuperate, which is almost all of it every single time?
That's right, because many of them, they encourage them to get public defenders too, so their court costs are covered by the state.
Yes.
And when that person, pleads out or whatever, goes to court, they get the bail money back. Whoever paid the bail gets the bail money back. So they recoup pretty much all their investment from these funds. And hey, on paper, we used it for bail.
They used it for bail, but they got it back. And they raise money to do these things. Guess what else Johnny Dangers was promoting? The people at Tijuana. Tijuana. Do you understand now why I so diligently sweep through all of the footage, all of the videos? Who was at Tijuana? Who was live streaming at Tijuana? Who was palling around with human traffickers and smugglers in Tijuana? Who was talking to all of the Antifa leaders and activists? Who knew them by name? Who knew all of the crooked lawyers? I am very interested in all of those things, and I've been paying very close attention because reasons. These reasons. These people continue to work again and again and again on the same projects. They keep showing up. Myron Dewey was one of those people in Tijuana. One of those people that was being investigated by the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, Interpol, and others. All of these people, including Johnny Dangers, whose real identity has never truly been verified, even going back to Standing Rock, I told you who I thought Johnny Dangers really is. I believe Johnny Dangers to be a set of people, a group of people, with military backgrounds that have also been found to be in these locations at the same time that these events are being live streamed. So, Digital Smoke Signals, if you recall, they posted a video of the encampment at El Barretal in Tijuana, and they were part of the Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network, and they were there with their Eagle and Condor, one nation, one people hashtags and prophecies. And if you scroll down, it says, please transcribe into Spanish for our non-Spanish speakers. And then in the comments, we have several people that are tagged that are with Myron Dewey, and Digital Smoke Signals. These are all of the people that were at El Barretal working with these group of people that were put on a watch list. Jesse Sandoval, David Gaskin, Cam McCoy, and Lilith Sinclair. Okay? So if you don't know, for all of you who are just becoming familiar with Lilith Sinclair, Kiara Janae Horsley of Portland, Oregon, you should know Kiara is her real name. She is a full-service sex worker and stripper in Portland and other places, I assume. And she went to a city where, incidentally, a lot of the people in the smuggling operation, like LGBTQI leader of Diversidad Sin Fronteras, OJ Pitaya, was accused and investigated for trafficking children, sex trafficking of children. Also, an ally of these groups of people, okay? And what they were doing at the border was involved smuggling, human smuggling, and trafficking. That's what it involved, if you didn't know, because she has another background. She was also involved at the camps, at the border. This is what they do when they go to the borders, when they go to the action where there will be an inciting of violence against the police. They will get right up into the police's face and yell in their faces, "Why are you doing this? We are peaceful protesters." And then they will say they are being attacked as press. It happens again and again and again. We saw it at Standing Rock. We saw it in Mexico. Johnny Dangers is now doing it in Portland. Portland riot police picked me up off the ground and violently threw me back twice last night while very clearly marked press. Back is very sore.
Yeah.
I have live streamed some of these people's live streams, and I've shown you how they go up and get in people's faces. The press doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Activists do that. Protesters do that. The press does not do that. If they engage in that kind of inciting, if they engage in that kind of activity, they're not really the press. You can't put some letters on your vest, on your back, and expect that if you're assaulting law enforcement, you're going to get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work. Let me remind you that the Border Support Network is comprised of admins that include the moderators and the admins, the ones that started the group, which includes Lilith Sinclair. There she is. This is the Border Support Network that they founded, and what it was for and what it was involved in included kidnapping of children and human smuggling and fake marriages, all of which we proved on this show. I showed you the receipts of all the things I'm talking to you about now. Lilith Sinclair posted on her page, along with another Antifa leader that went with her to Tijuana, Jamie Skopowski, who's also on the watch list of the Homeland Security and others et al. She talked about her experience of being in Mexico and what was it like, and the friendships that she built and the things that she did. And she talks about, what do you do when you look back on photos of the 16-year-old Honduran boy who looked at your tattoos and started drawing pictures on his arm, and then looked at pictures of the kitten that you rescued, adopted, and loved during the middle of a fraught occupation under severe federal repression. Does this sound familiar to you? Mm-hmm. Does this sound like the Democracy Now! Interview you just heard?
Yep.
Oh, did she mention the 16-year-old Honduran boy? She remembered the 16-year-old Honduran boy that was looking at her tattoos after making a solo journey to escape gangs, only to recognize that he got deported back to unspeakable violence, while the cat that you rehomed lives a life of security and comfort with the family willing to take it in. The 16-year-old Honduran boy who looked at her tattoos and started drawing them on his own arm. Are you feeling creeped out? Because I am. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you a little bit more about that whole situation, because maybe you don't know. But, by the way, during and throughout her activism as part of the Border Support Network, she has made posts like this about her fetish of bondage, her bondage fetish, and how it's okay, and how you should do it too, and how it's safe, and how she craves it, and how she craves sex work and stripping and the other things that sex workers enjoy doing. And let me also remind you her close proximity to those that were working directly with the human smugglers, like Sam Slovic. In this post of Sam Slovic's about the caravan, and I showed you many of his posts. Sam Slovic, the D-list actor that was doing documentaries, mm-hmm. along with people like Steve Goot, who I recently live streamed on our platforms, protesting in Hollywood or in LA, I think. I can't remember, somewhere in California. Let's look at who is tagged in this post by Sam Slovic about the caravans. Remember, Sam Slovic is the guy that was communicating directly with human smugglers that were part of this caravan group that arrived in Tijuana. And this is who's tagged. We've got Rob Wilson, the guy I just told you I believe is Johnny Dangers. We've got Joshua Nichols, one of the people that also recently showed up to defend Paloma. Mm-hmm. Around the same time that the crooked lawyers in the Butterfly Center started complaining about our recent reports. Oh, why, look, there's Lilith Sinclair. Oh, why, look, there's Louis Monsivice, the guy that was in prison for human smuggling and made a video talking about the best places to cross people illegally. And this is what they talked about while they were there, because remember, they weren't just at the border attacking Border Patrol, pretending to be medics, right? They were also in the federal confrontation with federal police at the warehouse turned into temporary shelter Contra Viento y Marea in Tijuana. This is where I first saw Oscar El Blue Ramirez reporting. Take a look. Here they are talking about their birthday. Jamie Skopowski is wishing Joshua Nichols a happy birthday, since he had his birthday while he was in the shelter protesting against the federal police. They were protesting against a shutdown, condemned building. The building was condemned for health reasons. There was children as young as 2 who had developed the beginning of pneumonia that needed to be taken to hospital, and these activists were not allowing this shelter to be closed and condemned. That's what they were protesting, folks. They were endangering people's lives, children's lives. They were sharing drugs. I showed you at the time, I translated for you what the federal police that were there said about what these folks were doing inside and who exactly they were. This other post shows you that River Doherty, they talk about River in this. River and Herman and Lilith are on shift tonight. I'll be on the crew change to mañana, says Jamie Skopowski. Buenas noches, familia. So she says she'll be back with chocolate and medicine and unicorn love. So that means that she will be back with candy. I don't know what kind of candy
Sounds
they
like
call candy.
drugs to me.
Drugs. Medicine is definitely drugs. And who knows what else. And so what I'm saying is these folks were all working together. This is the group of people, of activists that were in Viento en Marea with the people that eventually went to the shelter at Agape. And these are the conversations that were being had amongst the WhatsApp conversations with the pastor after they kidnapped a migrant child, along with a group of people that threatened to kill him. And why did they threaten to kill the migrant child? Because he told on the other people in the group about their consuming drugs with the child. Let's take a look at the WhatsApp chat. In the WhatsApp chat, they talk about how this boy, the pastor is talking about how they told the boy that they were going to kill him. And a woman named Letty, with her phone number redacted there, says, just because they know the people doesn't mean that they're involved. If anything, put the report on the people that you claim took the boy, not the organization, because the Pastor Alberto Rivera, was accusing the activists with the Border Support Network, the Caravan Support Network, that these people have founded, as being responsible for kidnapping this boy. And Letty says, name the individuals that you think are responsible, not the organization, okay? How do you know that they're all friends? Are you assuming? No, we're not assuming. We've seen you working together for a long time. But see how they defend these other activists from being accountable. And the pastor responds, he says, it says me, where he's responding, what he said. He says that the boy hasn't been returned and that they're requesting an Amber Alert. So the pastor upped the ante by telling them that I'm reporting this to the police and the authorities here in Mexico. You guys are in big trouble. And they're like, you can't assume we're all friends and we know each other. And how can you be saying that? Because they're scared. Because they're criming. Here in another post, they continue to talk. Just so you know that they're not operating under some delusion that they were just babysitting or something like that. They know that they're committing a crime that they are being reported for, involving themselves in kidnapping an unaccompanied minor, and they're defending themselves. Estela says, Letty, who took the kid? How long ago? Sorry for my questions. They're a little bit disjointed. It's been about a week. Somebody says it's been about a week. And someone else responds at Letty that the boy in question that was kidnapped was under Pastor Albert's responsibility, and that no one, even less American activists, in quotes, should have interfered. I agree wholeheartedly with that. And guess what? Not only were these people operating, knowingly committing crimes, the pastor is telling them they're committing crimes, and the other activists in the group are saying no one should have done what these folks engaged in. And then they say, the point now is we don't know if the boy is safe, while with the pastor he was before. And the pastor says, I gave them until Monday to return the boy and to communicate with Agape. That's the name of his shelter. There has been no interest in communication with Agape, or at least to give an accountability about the whereabouts of the boy. There were probably so many other ways to take the boy into custody that this is really reckless. So they were well aware, and the response from the other people in the group is, oh my God, this is a crime. This shouldn't have happened. Here's what they said in this group chat. Somebody, again, is fighting with the pastor. Seems like the fact that they threatened to kill the boy is the only reason for this scandal, it says. It's pretty sketchy the way it seems like he left with strangers. And I only say this because people in these situations are vulnerable to trafficking. Not saying that that's happening in this situation, but the boy shouldn't have just been taken in that manner without other people who are helping, knowing of his whereabouts. I think the concern I'm getting from all this, aside from the death threat. Yes. By the way, it says at the very bottom, somebody acknowledges at the very bottom there, this is so blown out of proportion. Let's suppose the child goes back to Agape. What then? Those activists, the activists being accused of kidnapping this boy, those activists stayed with the migrants inside Contra Viento y Marea day and night for a week to make sure the migrants were treated with dignity. So, who did I just show you were the migrants that were staying inside of the shelter Contra Viento y Marea that they speak of that were involved with this kidnapping? Lilith Sinclair, Jamie Skopowski, Joshua Nichols, River Doherty. You saw the names, right? Mm-hmm. You remember? You can rewind later if you forgot. Let's look at the WhatsApp chat about what they said. So, Lilith says in the middle of this conversation that they're talking back and forth. Thank you so much, Letty. I know personally, she says, that I let that boy sleep in my vehicle the night before anybody from the warehouse even went to Agape at all. If I had any inkling of a worry about his whereabouts, I'd be actively voicing it here. She is covering for the kidnapping and the kidnappers that she works with. She's like, I'm not concerned. And then she goes on, but I personally much rather know that he's getting one-on-one complete attention. So he's getting better attention with whoever he's with right now than being an unaccompanied minor in any shelter. So what she just said is, I have absolutely zero cause for this boy's safety. I have no concern whatsoever. In fact, I think he's better off with whoever kidnapped him than a boy in a shelter. Who is she to say in another country what they should be doing according to following the law? By the way, remember, this is a woman that doesn't just want to abolish the police. She wants to abolish the USA. This country. Mm-hmm. She wants it gone. This is the phone number that you see redacted. I looked up the phone number that's redacted from that WhatsApp chat. I did not, I redacted the addresses and the full phone number that starts with 253 that I took from that WhatsApp chat that was given to me by the pastor. And it resolves to Kiara Horsley. To Kiara Janae Horsley to this day, right before this show, approximate age 26, past addresses in Oregon, possibly related to IEG J. Horsley, Amy Sue Horsley, Eugene Horsley, Nilius Horsley, Wilbert Adolphus Horsley, possibly related to those folks. That's the same Kiara Horsley that I told you is Lilith Sinclair. And this is what else she said in this conversation. The DEEF, this is the agency that is in charge of protecting children in Mexico, DEEF. The DEEF is not an option, and it's very probably that they are going to deport the kid against his willingness. So it is better if he is with some NGO or shelter with attention to unaccompanied minors. So that agency that's in charge of making sure that unaccompanied minors don't get trafficked by people like her, that agency is not okay with her. She doesn't want them involved. Here's another post that she made. The night before anyone went to Agape when donations were going over, the pastor asked me to give the boy a ride in my vehicle with the food. I asked the kid if he would stay there, and he said before anyone from the warehouse got to Agape that he really didn't want to stay there. He just wanted to ride in a car, with her presumably, and see the place and come right back. He never wanted to be there and expressed multiple times he had no plans of staying there because the idea made him uncomfortable. The next night, when I slept in the street next to this kid, we got threatened with arrest by municipal police for sleeping on the sidewalk. Him and I slept in my car that night. I'm very invested in his well-being, and I know that he does not want to be there. And in my opinion, he would likely try to run away if forced back. Do any of you want Kiara Janae Horsley, approximate age 26, full-service sex worker, that doesn't believe in the United States government, in the USA, that doesn't believe that the department that defends children in Mexico should be involved with caring for an unaccompanied minor, that slept in her car and slept with her on the sidewalk on the streets, and apparently started drawing her tattoos on his skin, that 16-year-old Honduran boy that she's very invested in. Do you want someone like her making that decision, or a government agency, or a social worker, or a medical professional? Because I don't think that this woman has the right to advocate for anybody. Here's another thing she said. Anyone who has spent any time with this kid would know he is extremely uncomfortable with authority, and he needs more individual and loving attention, and that he doesn't willfully do things that he doesn't want to do. He doesn't just go with the flow because an adult said to. And I really think that forcing him into a situation that he's expressed he doesn't want will end badly. Now, do you think, given that the possibility, as another activist in that thread said, that the children are at great risk for human trafficking, for sex trafficking, that would be in the forefront of Lilith Sinclair's mind, and making sure that she is not advocating for or protecting those who sexually abuse children? Well, let's take a look at this next post. This is a post about her sex work and how much she misses her community. And here's another one where she's talking about starting her sex work and how important that is. This is before she went to Tijuana. So I'm tired, and I've been thinking a lot about the journey I've been on in like the last 6 years, and especially within the last year. Folks who've known me for that long often point out that I am a completely different person than when they met me. I think about that. I've started mentally cataloging the wild ride I've had of experiences within that time: college, coming out, personal trauma, mental illness, a monogamous engagement, and starting sex work. Then Occupy ICE PDX, Charlottesville 2.0, Portland living, Tijuana, learning from indigenous elders, and so much more. It's been a lot. So if you have any questions about all of that, feel free to ask. feel free to ask. I have some questions about why they didn't care about what happened to that little boy that she claims was more than probably deported back, because I heard that he was trafficked into this country. I heard that the pastor reported on this network, on our channel, that there was somebody that returned to his shelter after being deported that had seen him in an ICE facility in the United States.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yep.
So this is what she posted on her page a while back about one of the other people that has been accused of sexual harassment, excessive consumption of alcohol with DUIs, multiple felonies. The co-founder of the Caravan Support Network, Antifa activist and former Portland resident, Evan K. Duke III, who's been arrested, who has had numerous people come out saying that he was a horrible person, including that he mismanaged monies. And this is what she said. Only after months and months and months and months of working with him. Of course, she had to distance herself, like many of these folks do. I do not have any further communication or affiliation with Evan Duke. I spent nearly 6 months working alongside him because people vouched for him, and he was able to weaponize his experience and years in the movement to present himself as a trustworthy comrade. I unfortunately allowed myself to spend 6 months being belittled by him, gaslit, and trying to hold him accountable for his extremely misogynistic behavior, his problems with alcoholism, and the extremely aggressive and verbally abusive behaviors he would engage in while drunk. I do not trust him with finances because I have reasons to believe he has not been transparent with money. He no longer has anything to do with the Border Support Network or activism, actually, because of his behaviors. And it took you 6 months to figure that out? You allowed him to abuse you, watched him get drunk, assault other people, be not good with money. You watched all of that happen for all that time, and you didn't say a peep. Really? That seems kind of comfortable. So is this. The fact that she has also been fundraising for her good buddy and fellow Black Lives Matter founder in Portland, Mr. Micah Rhodes. Andy No tweeted that Portland Antifa activist and sex worker Lilith Sinclair, who gave a speech about abolishing the USA, is running a crowdfunding campaign for Micah Rhodes. Rhodes, a prominent left-wing activist along with Gregory McKelvey, was imprisoned for a conviction of sex crimes against minors. Oh, so she doesn't care about sex crimes against minors. How bad is this situation we're talking about? Well, let me tell you. This guy, according to an article in OregonLive.com, which I will share a link for on my Facebook Live, says that for the second time in recent weeks, this guy got arrested, and that he was ready to go to prison for having sexual contact with an underage teen. And again, for the second time, an Oregon judge did not give him any jail time and instead gave him 5 years of probation. What? Yes, he got 5 years of probation, even though this is not his first time. Judge Jerry Hodson said he would send Rhodes to prison for 2 to 2.5 years because he believed that he wouldn't send him to prison for 2 to 2.5 years because he believed that he had earnestly tried to change despite the prosecution's pleas. And here are some of the things he was accused of. In March of 2019, not eons ago, okay, in March of 2019, Rhodes pled guilty to 2 counts of felony second-degree sexual abuse for at least twice having had sexual contact with a 17-year-old boy. Investigators said that Rhodes met the boy on a gay dating app, and the contact happened in Gresham and Troutdale. Days earlier, a Washington County jury had found him guilty of second-degree sexual abuse of a 17-year-old girl. A defense memo said the contact happened after the girl went to watch a movie with Rhodes at his mother's home. Oregon law says it's a crime for an adult to have sexual contact with a minor if there are 3 or more years in age difference between the two. Age of consent laws may vary from state to state, with most states allowing 16 or 17-year-olds to have sexual contact with adults. Oregon is one of about a dozen states that sets the age of consent at 18. So, Rhodes, who is now 24 years of age as of this 2019 article, was a leader of the protest group Portland Resistance, which rose to prominence after Donald Trump won the presidential election in 2016. The same people that have been operating since they started that anti-fascist group. Before then, Rhodes had been part of the Portland activist scene and a familiar face in city council meetings. So, against him, they cited his history of sexually victimizing children and his unwillingness to follow rules. If you could put up the screen capture from this article in which they talk about this. This is not, these are not his first offenses. See, he had been in sex offender treatment programs 3 times. So he had already been through these treatment programs and continued to reoffend. Park, the district attorney for Multnomah County, deputy district attorney, said that Rhodes, as a teenager, had also been convicted in youth court as a first degree sodomy and sexual abuse. When Rhodes was 14, he sexually abused a 9-year-old boy. And when he was 15, he sexually abused 3 boys. Does the fact that he did this while he was a child himself excuse the sodomy against a 9-year-old, or excuse the sexual assault against those 3 boys? How would you feel if those were your children? So, this sexual acting out was obviously ignored, and he was once again given probation. How does Lilith Sinclair describe it in the GoFraudMe? Here's the GoFraudMe. They raised $4,335. They met and exceeded their goal. And Lilith Sinclair is the organizer of the fundraiser. Does she know that he committed sexual assault against minors? Here's a picture of her talking about how he's a gay black man. There she is with her buddy. This guy is not just some random Portland activist and co-founder of Black Lives Matter along with her. No. This is a friend. And she is defending Micah. And she says that as a gay black man fighting for human rights in the public eye, can you go back to that post? That he has faced countless personal threats and character assassination attempts. Is this a character assassination attempt? What does it say there in the next one? Remember, this is a guy who was rearrested, according to Andy No, and sent to prison in 2018 when he violated probation that required him to stay away from children. He was released in July last month, okay? Just released. Okay, go back to the summary. Now let's go to the summary in her GoFraudMe for him. And she talks about how he was a successful organizer and he was working against ICE And, you know, like many black men growing up in a majority white and racist city, he had a history of the police targeting him. And while under this oppressive mission, the state landed on an instance of consensual sex that occurred between Micah and his best friend that was almost 18. So she knows that he had sex with a minor. Despite the fact that his victim, she puts the name of the word victim in quotes, and that is despite the fact that this child didn't want to press charges and there wasn't a unanimous decision made by the jury, they found him guilty of a crime. And that's why he needs your dollars.
Oh.
That's why. Because in this whole roundabout way, while she's defending him, it's because he's a gay black man who is fighting a racist, oppressive system, and he was fighting very successfully against ICE, that they went, aha, you had sex with a minor. That you're going to jail for sex with a minor. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's how it works. I think that you're okay with children being abused, trafficked, kidnapped. I think that you're against having any authorities, that you sell it like those children don't want those authorities either. You've done it before. You defend this again. And all of the people that were in those circles chumming up with human traffickers and defending people like that, hanging out with people like that, they will continue to be exposed right here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Have a great night. God bless.